Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another session on logic development. Yesterday, we had a brief introduction as to what this concept of problem solving is all about. We looked into different types of problems which are there. We talked about computational thinking. We identified 4 pillars of computational thinking. Can somebody quickly tell me what are the 4 pillars that we identified yesterday?
Decomposition, pattern recognition, abstraction, and algorithm.
Pillars of the computational thinking that we had discussed. And then we talked about, we said humans and the computers are very well suited to solve algorithmic problems. Although heuristic kind of problems today, with all these developments which are happening in the field of computing, we are in a position to develop heuristic solutions, but we said we are going to focus on algorithmic solutions. So 2 types of solution, heuristic and algorithmic. So here, when we talk about the problems, we face some difficulties. Now, computational thinking is not something that is a hit for my parents or something. It is a skill that can always be imparted, and it is a skill that you can always acquire. So there are situations why people find it difficult to solve a problem. Exactly are those difficulties? Why do people find, or developers or aspiring developers like you at times find it difficult to solve a problem? Okay. The very common answer that they give is, sir, suchat nahi, I cannot think. Okay, now that's not the right kind of answer. Or that's not the right reason why are you not in a position to think or come with a solution. There are reasons behind it. So let's try and understand what are the difficulties that one face in problem solving. Why do people at times fail to solve a problem? What are the difficulties one faces while solving the problem? First, most of the time, people are not taught how to solve a problem. We at times, even as trainers, demonstrate solutions to you. Many of you must have learned some programming language with me. What we do in programming language, we try and show you or showcase the ability of the language. Say Bhakishri was with me for Python. So while we are learning Python, our objective was to understand how Python is so special. Sairam was with me for C++. So we made an attempt to show how C++ is better, how C++ can solve the problem. But we, while in the process of learning a language, we as trainer also don't get enough time to teach how to solve a problem. We are more focused in learning the language skill. And students also a lot of times don't really understand the significance. Believe me, early days when I used to teach programming, I never taught programming as the first session. Never. I always asked students to go through the logic development session first, and then only they were asked to do programming. But nowadays, people are not ready to, there are things some time, extra time, but many of them are in hurry. Shashwat came to me saying, I would like to learn Java, directly Java. But he understood when I convinced him, Kare, you should not be directly jumping on for Java. You should actually go step by step. He accepted. Many of the students do not accept. Even today, I have some students in my batch who have directly come to learn Java. Now it will be a challenge for me, whether I'll teach Java or whether I'll teach them how to solve a problem. So now they have come to learn Java, I'll tell them how good or bad Java is. But I cannot take an assurance whether they can use Java to solve a problem. Because unless and until you do not know how to solve a problem, you learn any number of languages, person still does not get the confidence of solving problem using that language. So a lot of times people are not taught how to solve a problem, or people don't learn how to solve a problem. Okay, even if the trainer is willing to teach, people are not ready to learn. They feel language skill is more important than the technique as to how to solve a problem. So that's one reason why people say, oh, I cannot come up with a solution. You need to spend some time learning how to solve a problem, and that is done only with some more exercises that we have. Second, people are afraid to make decision for fear that will go wrong. doing wrong is a sign that you are learning. When you write a solution, more often than not, you will fail. More often than not, your code is going to fail. That means you will not write the correct program. It will not be a successful attempt. And that does not happen with freshers like you. It happens with experienced persons like me also. We have an idea, we go on to implement that idea, and then we realize that doesn't work. Forget about implementation, on paper also it doesn't work. We have an idea, and then we test and then say, oh, this test fails. Then we have to think about another idea. So we should not have fear about going wrong. Many times, rather, when you make 4 attempts, one of the attempts may be successful. Okay, may be successful. The thing is, like with experience, the number of attempts that you have to do will come down, but it is very rare that within the first attempt itself, everything works fine. Improvisation has to be done. Believe me, say you are novice, I have few years of experience, but like companies like Microsoft who are developing this MS Office, they are developing Windows operating system. They are the best bright minds in the world who are developing that kind of software. Will Microsoft ever compromise on the team members who will be a part of the development team for Windows operating system? Will they compromise? कोई मिल नहीं रहा है इसलिए किसी बंदे को ले लेंगे. And even then, even after all the brightest minds are working on that Windows operating system, don't you see updates of Windows operating system being given to you every now and then? Plus it says some feature, when you go for update, it says critical update because they have identified some security issue. So you have to install that particular update. Means what? That means they did not think about that issue when they developed that particular software. And every month they give you updates. Every month they give you updates. They are providing you updates means what? They are providing you an improved version of the same code. Most of the time, not providing you any additional facility. It is just like some things that they have identified can be improved upon, they are improving. That means there are certain things which are not very good what they had earlier written. But then we should not have that fear of failure. You have to make an attempt to write the code. Don't worry if it goes wrong. Okay, that is just a part of the development process. It's a part of the development process. Huh? I'm not even saying it's a part of learning process. It's a part of development process. So you come with an idea and then you realize that idea is not right. But how do you identify that idea is not right before you spend time writing the code is very important. It's not like you'll build the building and then you'll say, oh, this building is not correct. So let me pull down the building and reconstruct the building all. That's not it. You'll create a plan and check whether the plan is right or not. So don't be afraid of making decision or writing the code. More often than not, your ideas are going to go wrong. So don't worry. Persist with that thought process of coming up with new ideas. People go through the problem solving process. They complete one or more steps inadequately. Like when Rahul was making a cup of tea yesterday, he skipped some steps in between. He's making an assumption that we understood what will happen in between. When Prithviraj started taking a vessel, he did not even mention about what is the dimension of the vessel. When he talked about put it on the gas burner, but what flame? High flame, low flame, medium flame, what flame? For how long? So we skip some steps and say when you talk about computers, it's not gonna, and we are not developing heuristic solutions where the machines is going to learn on its own. Oh, last time the tea was not good. So next time it will adjust the flame size. That's not going to happen for us. Our programs are algorithmic solutions that we are developing. Here, you have to specify every step in detail. You cannot skip some steps and proceed further. So when people go through problem solving process, they complete one or more steps inadequately. So when he talks about start the burner of the your stove, then start thick, but what flame should we maintain? Boil the water, but to what temperature should we boil? For what time we should boil that water? So every step should be completed correctly. You shouldn't leave that thing halfway through. They may not define the problem correctly or may not generate sufficient list of alternatives. This is the biggest reason for failure. What happens is you come with an idea and then you stick to only that idea. You don't think about an alternative. Is there any other way to solve this particular problem? We are so happy getting the idea at the first case itself. And then we believe this works, is good. It may be correct, but it may not be the best. It may be correct, mark my word, it may be correct, but may not be the best. It may be providing you a solution to the problem, but there may be a better way to provide you the solution to the same problem. But unless and until you do not think about alternatives, how will you know whether your idea is better or whether your idea is poor? Because unless, suppose if I say amongst all of you, if I say Aditya is the tallest person in this class, is that right or wrong? This statement right or wrong? Tell me. Okay, come on, tell me. Kaustubh, tell me, Aditya is the tallest person in this particular class, right or not?
Sir, how can I?
Suppose you are sitting in the classroom, and then if I make a claim.
Yes, sir, that's true.
Okay. That's true. Okay. That may not be true unless you don't stand and unless you do not compare his height with somebody else.
Yes, yes, yes.
Correct. So for you
Yes,
to
sir.
make that particular claim, you have to compare. So if I say his solution is brightest, correct. So unless I do not have an alternative solution, unless I do not compare it with the alternative solution, and for on some parameters, how can I say his solution is better or your solution is better? So you have to have alternatives for comparison. You need to have two solutions. Maybe you're checking for the time that it takes to solve the problem. So you'll run your Kaustubh solution, will run Aditya's solution. Aditya's solution took 2 seconds. Kaustubh solution takes 3 seconds. So at least on the parameter of time, speed, Aditya's solution is better than this. You write only one solution that gets solved in 1 minute or 1 second. Still, can we say it's the best solution that is there? Unless we do not know, we do not have alternative techniques of solving that problem. And then you could have seen alternative technique could have solved in fraction of that or could have taken double the time. So we need solutions to be compared. You cannot stick with only one idea and believe that that's the only solution and that's the only way to solve that particular problem. So we need something to compare as well. We need something to compare as well. So here we're going to go. They may not be, they may not define the problem correctly or may not generate sufficient list of alternatives. They may not define the problem correctly. This statement, I'm going to come back again. What happens is, as I told you yesterday, the client that you have with whom you're talking, for whom you're developing a system, he is not necessarily a developer. He is not necessarily an engineer who will talk in technical terms. He's a businessman. He will only tell you about the problem that he's facing. Now, you as a developer, and he will narrate the entire story to you. You as a developer have to identify what exactly is the pain, what exactly is the problem for which he's expecting you to provide a solution. He may not articulate it well in the right kind of sentences. He will tell you what difficulty is facing, but may not be in a position to express it properly. You have to analyze and find out what exactly the problem is. And if you fail to define that particular problem correctly, obviously the solution that you will come up with will also be wrong because you have not identified that problem correctly. So you need to define the problem correctly, or even if you are defined, you may not have generated sufficient list of alternatives. Choosing the best alternative, they may eliminate good alternatives or list the pros and cons too hastily. Look at this. I have faith in Shreyash. Shreyash for the last 3 times had given me a fantastic idea. This time around, Ashish also contributed with an idea. But my experience with Shreyash was something, the last 3 times he had given a good idea. So I'm biased. I'm so biased that I feel Shreyash ka hi idea last 3 times select hua tha. So probably this time around also, it could be the Shreyash idea which is correct, which is better. This may not necessarily be the case. Shreyash may be giving you 10 ideas and last 10 times his idea may be best. But 11th time his idea may be the worst idea that is there. It could always happen. So we may at times eliminate Ashish's idea, which could have been much better. Ashish's idea was rejected for last 10 times. But now the 11th idea that he has provided may be better than what anybody else has provided. So we are always in haste. We have that bias. So we have to overcome that particular bias. At times when you are comparing the ideas, we do not even check for the ideas on all the parameters. We only see the speed at times, but we do not check the memory that is consuming. Sometimes it may also happen Aditya's idea is very good in terms of speed, but it is consuming a lot of memory. And Rahul's idea may be slightly slower, but it takes hardly any memory. So there can be multiple parameters on which we have to check whether that idea is good or not. And you do not list all the pros and all the cons, all the advantage and all the disadvantage, and you make a decision that this idea is better because we are in a hurry to write that particular code. So that could be the reason why you may not come with the best kind of solution. You may not use logical sequence for the steps in the solution. You may, the logic itself may be wrong. So these are various difficulties that one faces while we are solving the problem. So we need to overcome this particular thing. And this problem can be overcome only by program planning. But if you plan your program correctly, most of these difficulties that are there can be overcome. And one thing that you all is this entire exercise that we are having right now is with only a single objective to learn how to solve problems. Because most of the time we learn languages, not learning how to solve the problem using any language. Probably that you know. So our next, whatever number of sessions we take, we plan to have around 20-hour sessions. So all these 20-hour sessions that we're going to have, our attempt will be to solve as many problems as we can, exercise a lot of exercises, and we'll solve those problems. So once you solve that particular problem, and keeping all the things in your mind, then when you learn a programming language, it could just be easy for you to just translate that particular idea into a computer program. Okay, and you find the difference in your confidence about solving that particular problem. That fear of problem solving should go away from you. So what's the purpose of program planning? To write the correct program, the program must write each and every instruction in correct sequence. So you should not make an assumption that the machine will understand anything. Machine will neither add a single statement to your program, neither will delete some statement from your program. If you write 4 instructions, whether they are correct or they are not correct, it is going to execute those 4 instructions one after another. So machine is not going to think what is being achieved. Yeah, the 3rd instruction was not correct. It should have been present after the 3rd and 4th instruction. No, it is just going to obey like a obedient servant. It's just going to execute those statements. So you as a programmer must write every instruction, and that too in a correct sequence. Your flow of your program, your logic should be correct. Okay. And how do you come with the correct logic? We'll learn as we go ahead. But to write a correct program, programmer must write each and every instruction in the correct sequence, should not skip anything, should not assume, oh, it's so simple, machine will learn. Nothing is simple, nothing is complex. Every step in minutest detail you have to specify. Don't assume machine will understand something on its own. Don't assume that the machine will add some instruction or delete some instructions. The logic, that is the instruction sequence of a program, may be very complex. The idea may be very complex. That's okay. Idea may be very complex. Okay. But then that complex idea is also made of some sequence of instructions. Just make sure those logic is nothing but that idea that you have in your mind. Just make sure those steps are mentioned in the correct order. Those steps are mentioned in the correct order. Logic can be checked, and that's precisely what we're going to do. It is not necessary that you came with an idea, you go and jump onto your keyboard and you punch in that idea using some language. Not necessary. Rather, that we should never do. You come with a logic, think about a scenario. I'm again repeating. Architect comes with an idea as to how to construct a building for you, and he constructs the entire building for you, just to realize later that the client did not like that building. Rather, what he always does is he creates a building, a model of the building. He shows the model to that particular client. If the model is approved by the client, or if their client suggests make some suggestions for changes, he makes the changes in the model, not the actual building. So if an architect, while he's constructing a building, can check for that particular plan whether it's correct or not, why can't a programmer, before he writes the program, why can't he check whether the idea is correct or not? And there are tools available for us, and I'm going to share with you some tools through which you can check your idea whether it is correct or not. You can have that confidence it's going to work even before you learn any programming language. So logic can be checked before we can write a program based on it. This saves time that will otherwise be wasted in implementing a wrong idea. So efforts that you may put in as a C developer or a C++ developer or a Python developer or a Scala developer to write that code, and just to realize that idea itself was wrong, so that hundreds of lines of code that you have written to bring that idea into reality, all that efforts are waste. And coding is quite difficult. Although you may say it's a mere translation, but it's difficult. It takes time. And then write that hundreds of lines of code and you realize, oh, that idea was incorrect. Then that code, the time that you have spent on the machine is all gone waste. And your team is working on that idea. You're the boss. You gave a wrong idea. Team invested hundreds of hours. And then we realize, oh, it has failed. And if time is invested over there, time is directly proportional to the cost. So your project cost has now been escalated. You have overrun the time limit that has been given. The logic can be checked. Be in a hurry to implement any logic. Check whether logic is correct or not. If the logic is correct, only then we will proceed further with implementing that idea, because we do not want to waste our time implementing a wrong idea. And that's the purpose of program planning. So if you do program planning, what does it ensure? Instructions are appropriate for the problem, neither less, neither more. You have not skipped on any instructions and you're not adding any unnecessary instruction. They are appropriate. Whatever steps are to be specified, you have specified everything. You have not written something which is unnecessary and you have not skipped on something which is necessary. Appropriate. That word appropriate is very important. Every instruction that needs to be specified to get that work done correctly has been specified. Just correct number of instructions, what they are required to get that work done. Minimal number of instructions which are required to get that work done have been specified. Nothing more, nothing less. And those instructions are in the correct order. Okay. Yesterday, when Rahul was making a tea, suppose he had first taken sugar, put into the pan or in the vessel and started with the flame of the gas. So the sugar would have got charred before you could add water or milk to it. Correct. So he had to take the water first, boil it, and then add sugar. But he takes sugar first, heats it up, and then adds water to it. That will not make the sugar for him. Although all the ingredients were to be added and that was to be boiled. But the order was also very important. You cannot put into that vessel the sugar and the tea powder first, heat it first for 5 minutes, and then add water and then add milk to it. You're not going to get the tea. Although those items were to be added, water was to be boiled, but the order of instruction was very important. So the correct sequence of instruction is very important. And at the end of the day, whatever you do, that should give you what you really were looking out for. It should serve you the tea at the end. So that so it fulfills the user requirement. So when you do program planning, it ensures that you write just enough number of instructions to solve the problem. Your instruction sequence are correct and it fulfills the objective. Whatever the client had asked for, you're delivering the client what he had asked for. So that's an advantage of going in for program planning. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Have you understood what we discussed? The purpose of program planning, why should we plan? Now we'll look into how do we plan. Okay, so that's what will be next. So what are the steps that we should take while you are solving the problem? That's the next topic for our discussion. But before we even discuss that particular topic, we should be convinced that this is required. Okay. Anybody has any questions regarding this, what we have discussed right now? Ankita, any issues? Ashish, Sairam, Shashwat, query?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Oh, no, sir.
I had 2 birthday boys and both of them are missing today. If it's a birthday, that does not mean you should miss the lecture. Huh? It was Sanjay's birthday today and it was Rohit's birthday also. And both of them have disappeared, probably celebrating. We could also celebrate over here. Anyway, it's them tomorrow. So steps to be followed for program planning. We understood the significance of program planning, but what are the steps that we should follow to solve the problem? So steps to be followed for in program planning. First, define the problem. Don't worry, I'll come to each of these steps and I'll discuss. First, we'll just go through the steps. Okay, we'll try and understand what is the significance of each of that particular step. The step that we have right now mentioned over here is talking about defining a problem. Now, can you tell me what exactly may be this particular concept of defining a problem? What comes to your mind when I say define the problem? Anybody? Come on, make an attempt. Say, fear of failure is something that you should not have in your mind. Huh? Your answer may probably go wrong, but you should not worry if your answer goes wrong. That fear you should.
To elaborate a problem or to sir, yes, sir. Or to elaborate a problem.
Yeah, so you're saying elaborate the problem is what mean you mean by defining a problem. Okay. So that's one way of looking at it. Anybody else? That is Kaustubh.
Clarity of question.
Clarity of question. Can you explain what you mean by clarity?
And understanding the problem statement.
Understanding the problem statement means
What all are the requirements of the client?
okay. What exactly is the client looking out for? Okay.
Yes.
What are the requirements of the client?
What
is
was the
output that
question?
when they define a problem, what do you understand by the first step in program planning is defining a problem?
Sir, what exactly we have to do, or our end goal to achieve something, like to solve.
So to solve means the solution you're looking at for.
What is the root cause?
Root cause. Root cause for what?
The problem.
Cause of the problem. Okay. What else? Anybody? What do you feel? Define a problem. What exactly we should be doing while we are trying to define a problem? Agishri? Oh, don't ask me to call out the name. You should make an attempt. When I give you a chance, chalo, make an attempt. I'm expecting it would only be rare situations where you come with a perfect answer. But then you come with the answer is very important. Whether it's perfect or not perfect, that's not very important for me. You making an attempt shows that you're thinking. That's important for me. Because if you keep on thinking, over a period, improvement is automatically going to happen. But if you're not involved, if you don't think, then how will the improvement happen? Yes, Rahul?
So the identifying the potential problem.
Identifying the potential problem. So let's understand what exactly do you mean by defining a problem. That's the first step towards problem solving. Okay. Or planning a problem, defining a problem. What does it say? It says it is the most difficult phase. And a lot of time we feel coding is the most difficult phase. Writing a program is the most difficult phase. Rather, in the entire life cycle of program, the most difficult phase is defining a problem. Unless until you do not define the problem, okay, and you do not identify what exactly is the difficulty that the client is facing, what is exactly the case that the client is looking out for, what solution the client requires, or what is the in the entire process, what is that is hindering the client from achieving his objective. So unless and until you have not identified what is the difficulty that the client is facing, what exactly is the issue which is not giving that client an opportunity to achieve his objective, unless you do not identify the core, you will never be in a position to provide or satisfy the client. So you have to identify. It's like a doctor. He has to diagnose the patient correctly. He has to understand what exactly has gone wrong with the patient. Patient may complain, I have a stomach pain. That does not mean he has overeaten or something always. There's a gas in his stomach. There may be other issue. There may be an ulcer. There may be other issue that may be there. But diagnosis of the, like for a doctor, diagnosis is very important. Like for a developer, defining a problem is very important. Believe me, there are a number of medicines which are available. And you always appreciate that doctor who diagnoses the cause of the problem very well, isn't it? Because medicine to anybody can give. You can also take a medicine looking at that online health which are available. But unless you do not diagnose what has happened, how can you even select the medicine that you have to take to overcome that particular difficulty that you're facing? User may not be in a position to articulate needs well. Now somebody said you'll gather the requirement. The problem is to understand the requirement. You'll go into specific things. Problem is client is not an engineer. Client does not talk in the computing term. He talks in terms of his business. So if he's going to talk in terms of business, he's going to use language, words also from his business, not something which will be helpful for you as a developer. He can at the most elaborate. Somebody said elaborate. Client elaborates the problem. Elaborates means explain in, like he'll tell you the entire story. What all difficulties he's facing, what is happening. He can give you the entire story. He's elaborating the problem. We are not going to elaborate the problem once again. That means client told you the story and we write the story once again and say this is the problem. No. The entire story, but from within the entire story, like a doctor, you have to identify what is the exact cause of the problem. Unless and until you do not identify what is the exact cause of the problem in that entire story, elaborating it any further, that means adding few more sentences to that story, is not going to help. Client may have any number of complaints that he has, but go through that entire story and find out what exactly is the problem. But how do I do that? Client is the best person. He's been working on that system, although it may be manual, for years. Who is better than identifying, explaining what is the system? Client may be very good in doing his operation. Client may explain you what all his operations are there. But since he's involved in doing his work, he's not the right person to even identify what he's doing is correct or not. You may say, sir, he has 10 years of experience. Are correct, but 10 years of working, not 10 years of thinking. Yesterday, when you approach your client, you always have to put that consultant's hat. You're going to approach your client with the confidence that I'm going to provide him a solution in a business domain in which he has 10 years of experience and about a business that you do not know anything about. Look at this, what I'm saying. There is a business about which you do not know anything. You will gather information about that business only from the client. The client may be working for 10 years in that business. You will ask n number of questions to the client, understand the business as well as the client understands, and provide him a solution. Identify exact problem that is there, that is facing, and provide him a solution. Isn't it too much? 10 years of experience and your 10 days interaction with the client. Correct? But that's the skill of a developer, because he's not concerned with the profit or loss of that business. He's more concerned about understanding that operation, finding out what is the cause of the problem, and then providing a solution to overcome that particular problem that the client is facing. He's like an expert. He's like a consultant. So I always tell developers, if you really want to be successful, have faith in yourself that I can provide solution for a system that you may be working on. Tell the client, I can help you. And go with a mindset that I can provide the client with a solution. And only then, once you put on that hat of a consultant, your brain also starts thinking like a consultant. I tell people also dress properly, dress like a consultant. Don't go in casual things or something like that. You're not very serious about it. Dress like a consultant. The client should also have a confidence that ye banda mujhe help kar sakega. Socho वैसे, चलो वैसे, बात वैसे करो. Think, talk, eat like a consultant when you are approaching a client, and provide him a solution. Provide him a solution. But don't worry, it's not that difficult. User may not be in a position to articulate the needs very well. This is the problem. User is very good at explaining, narrating the entire story, elaborating. Somebody used the word elaborate. User will very well elaborate. He will explain his entire operation to you. Okay. He is not identifying what is going wrong inside that particular operation, because he's too involved in the operations. He's not thinking. He doesn't have bird's eye view as an external person. He's involved in the process. Since he's involved in the process, he feels what I'm doing is the best thing that I'm doing. You have to look at it as a third party, not to get involved in his business operation. Look at it from the third party, like an inspector who is inspecting that thing. Don't get involved in the operation. Look at it as a third party. Try and understand what the client is doing. Question every operation that is, why is this done this way? ऐसा क्यों कर रहे हो? ऐसा क्यों कर रहे हो? Do that. User needs may change frequently. Client with some requirement. By the time you are writing a code, he says, this is not what I had asked you. I had asked for something different. Now that becomes very difficult, because what client told you and what you assumed, what you understood, you assume that this is what the client means. That assumption creates a problem. Client was trying to tell you something and you assume something else. What you perceived the client's problem may not be the actual problem the client is facing. It could be the perceived problem. You thought this is the problem, but that may not be the actual problem that the client is facing. So user needs may change frequently, and that could be a very big difficulty that you'll face, because when you come with a solution, you write a code, client says, nahi, ye nahi chahiye tha mujhe. Problem that you'll face. Defining is an attempt to identify the problem. It's not to elaborate the problem, identify the problem. So defining is a process of identifying what is the cause of the entire issue. What is the central theme, core of that particular problem. The problem may be very big, but the actual pain area may be one something that is happening. Pet mein ulcer hai, that could be the cause of other issues that may be there. So identify that cause, define, when you try and define the problem, the definition has to be as short as possible, not the entire story, as short as possible. Identify what exactly is going wrong. Make an attempt to identify what is that is causing the difficulty that the client is facing, that he needs to overcome. So make an attempt to identify the core area. What is the central theme of the problem? Client may elaborate it, big story, 2-page story. Put it across in 2 or 3 lines. Identify what exactly is the problem. Just 2-3 lines you should be in position to elaborate what exactly the problem is. What is that client is looking out for? What exactly he wants? What is that we should be providing that client with? So try and identify the problem. Defining is a process of identifying the problem. Which problem? Not all superfluous small issues. The core, big issue, the central cause, the most important thing that is there in the system. Identifies the central theme. Don't worry about the smaller issues here and there. Identify the central theme. Once the central theme has been identified, you can build the solution around that central theme. You can build the solution around this. So identify that central theme of the problem. You should be in a position to express the central theme of the problem. And exactly karna kya hai? Once you identify the central theme, बाकी सारे वो central theme को fulfill करने के लिए the rest of the things you can add to that particular solution, that central theme that you have. It helps us to identify the problem. So defining is a process of identifying the problem. Once you identify the problem, you understand the problem. And if you can understand the problem, then only you can provide the solution to that particular problem. So defining is a process of identifying the problem. Identifying does not mean elaborating it even more than the client has elaborated. Client put the story in 3 lines, and now you take another 10 lines. A client put in 3 pages of information. You add another 2 pages to it. Okay. That would not be the way to go ahead. That would not be the way to go ahead. Your description should be as short, definition should be as short as possible. And there are a few more things that we need to know about the defining the problem. So we are still into the first step, understand the problem. Okay, understand and define the problem. Programmers may have to learn users' functional job task. Look at this. So if he's a banker and you are developing a banking system, do you feel the banking system was designed by only bankers? There were no developers, there were no engineers working on that particular thing. When Infi came with this very popular core banking solution, most of the developers who were working on them were computer engineers. Okay, very few functional experts. Now tell me, did the computer engineer have any knowledge about how the banking operation works? What is bank, what is credit, what is debit? Many of you even today may fail to tell me the difference between credit and debit. Okay, because these are not the terms that we are really aware of. Okay, these are not the terms that we are aware of. So we may fail. Suresh, what do you mean by debit? Suresh?
So the process where the money goes out of your account. Maybe.
So you have some financial sense. Okay, money goes out of the account, something that goes out. Credit is that something that comes in. Okay, but then there are so many other terms. If I say I have to have a lien on your account, then what do you mean by that?
So no idea.
Engineers, we are not from commerce stream that will understand those terminologies. Correct? But if you have to be a developer and you're going to develop a system for a banking client, you need to understand the system as well as the banker understands. The banker may have done post-graduation in commerce. You may be a computer science engineer, you may be a mechanical engineer, civil engineer, and now doing programming. Within short period, you have to understand all the terminologies. Within short period, you have to understand the functional, not the means what exactly operation is, what are those terms, what every person in that particular system does. You have to understand it as good as the person who is involved in that particular problem. Because you're going to provide solution, you are consultant, you are expert, don't forget that you are expert. So you have to understand the functional job of that particular client. You may not be required to do that accounting stuff, but then you need to at least put it on paper. Ki, what is this? Yeah, operation kiya to kya hota hai? If I do this operation, how it happens? So you should be in a position to write it at least on a piece of paper and keep in mind, okay, this means this means this, but means you have to understand the functional role of the problem. If you don't understand the system well, how can you provide solution? So programmers may have to learn the user's functional job task. The banker is doing banking operation. You as an engineer also understand the banking operation. Understand. Don't have to go and sit in the bank on the counter and start disbursing loan amount to the customers. But on what basis? Say Shashwat is a guy from the disbursement department. He issues the letter whether this customer should be given loan or not. But there must be some criteria. Shashwat doesn't look at the face. Bhagyesh's face is pretty. Let me give her a loan of another 10 lakh rupees. He will not look at the face. He'll look at the financial statement. And when he looks at the financial statement, there will be some ratios that he'll find. Iska P ratio kitna hai, iska overdraft loan kitna hai, all those things. And based on those criteria, he will have a decision whether to give an additional loan to that particular client or not. So identify those rules. How does Shashwat take a decision whether a client should be given a loan? What makes him take a decision this client not to be given a loan? So understand the functional job very well. And that's what you have to do. The programming job is very, very exciting. Why? Because you get to learn about so many different domains. Every client who comes to you may be from a different functional domain. One is insurance sector, another client may be from banking, third may be from manufacturing, fourth may be from somebody else. But when you study that process, you understand, and now you are a person who knows that operation as well as the client knows. But what do most of the companies do? Large organizations, suppose we have Ashish. Ashish has last project that he has worked for bankers. So what the company will do is, company will make sure that any banking project comes, they will give it to Ashish because he has prior experience of working with banking, correct? And then over a period, you develop expertise in that segment. We call it as a vertical. So when you talk about developers, they say, oh, I'm in the insurance vertical. I'm into this vertical. I'm into that vertical. Why? Because they have worked on several projects which are only in that functional job. And that also helps because with 2-3 clients, one after another, last 2-3 years, you're providing solutions only for banking, then you will definitely be a very good expert when it comes to banking operation. Yes or no? But you would also be versatile. Ek saal banking ke liye client ke liye develop kiya. Another year you have worked with insurance. Third year you have worked with stock market. Fifth year you have worked with somebody else. So you will also be a versatile personality who can provide solution. You have that ability to learn new things. So every style has some advantages and disadvantages. Companies also have, there are companies which will work only in one vertical. I can show you software development companies who work only in insurance. I can show you software development companies who work only on stocks. I'll show you software development companies who work only for ERPs for manufacturing firms. There are software development companies who develop ERP only for service industry. Why? Because they gain expertise over a period of time. They understand this operation very well. Okay, I know a guy who has been developing ERP only for training institutes. Last 15 years, he has been developing ERP only for training institutes. Now, that institute can be as large as a university or as small as a small institute at some local, taluka place or something like that. But it's after all education institute. University is education institute hai, and some small spoken English classes also training institute, because there are a lot of pattern. Identify the patterns, pattern recognition, things which are same in university and even in that thing, test conduct karna hoga, admission lena hoga, course ki fee collect karni hogi. A lot of things are common. Certificates issue karne honge, exam lene karne honge. So patterns, if you understand, you'll realize, oh, English spoken English class ho, ya university ho, there will be a lot of things that I can reuse. Pattern recognition. So there are companies which develop expertise only in one functional area. So we also have to develop that thing. Failures to understand the problem is a major cost of failure of most of the project. So if you fail to define the problem correctly, if you fail to identify what the problem is, obviously you'll neither complete the project in time. Even if you fail to complete the project in time, you have not delivered what the client is asking for. Problem statements may run into several pages, but definition should be short and precise. It should not be elaborate. It should be short and precise, as short as possible, but to the point. You will not tell the entire story. Identify the core problem that is there. Now, to do this, we'll just do a small exercise. We'll do a small exercise. I'm going to describe a problem to you, and all of you are going to make an attempt to define the problem. Identify what is the central theme. What I'm saying, identify what is the central theme. It's a very short statement that I'm going to make, maybe 4-5 lines. तो उसका आंसर तो एक लाइन में आना चाहिए या 2 लाइन में आना चाहिए, kind of thing. या 3 लाइन में, do whatever you want to, but definitely it should not be bigger than what I say. It should definitely not be bigger than what I say. Okay. So try and identify the core problem of it. Okay. Listen to my statement very, very carefully as I go on to define the problem. So let's begin. Suppose if I say, we are required to accept one integer, whole number, integer. The integer that we have accepted should be multiple of 5. Should be multiple of 5. Once we have accepted such an integer which is multiple of 5, okay, that means कोई और number नहीं चलेगा, 7, 12 नहीं चलेगा, 15, 20 चलेगा, multiple of 5. Once you have got some integer, then we are supposed to accept a second integer, and the second integer should be multiple of 10, and it should be greater than 500. It should be multiple of 10, not 5, multiple of 10, and it should be greater than 500. It should be greater than 500. Once you have got such two numbers, first is an integer which is greater than, which is a multiple of 5. Second is an integer which is greater than 500 and multiple of 10. Once we have got such integer, then we are going to divide the second integer with the first integer and display the result up to 2 decimal places. Display the result up to 2 decimal places, whatever. It could be 0.05 or it could be 5.55, whatever be the case. Okay, well, so the second number should not be multiple of 10, it should be multiple of 11. It should be multiple of 11 and greater than 500. It should be multiple of 11 and greater than 500. First number should be multiple of 5. Second number should be multiple of 11 but greater than 500. Multiple of 11 and greater than 500. And you're going to divide the second number with the first number and then display the result up to exactly 2-digit precision. That means after decimal point, there should only be 2 digits which are there. Now that was a description of a problem that I've given. Now I want you to make an attempt to define the problem. So let's start with Ankita first. Ankita, can you define the problem for me?
Yes, sir.
Please define the problem. And shouldn't have fear of failure. Answer is going to go wrong. Don't worry. Give an answer. What is more important is that you answer, not whether it is correct or right or wrong. That doesn't matter. Okay, Aditya.
Yes, sir. So basically here we want to
I just want the definition. Just define. Okay, you can continue.
Yes, sir. Sir, we want two integers, which is one which is multiple of 5 and second which is multiple of 11 and should be greater than 500. And we have to divide this second integer with the first, and we want a result which is in decimal of 2 decimal points. Sir, is it?
Ashish.
They're same, I guess. Multiple of yes.
Okay. Ashish हो गया, अंकित हो गया, आदित्य हो गया, भाग्यश्री. Same ही होगा. Okay. And after भाग्यश्री कौन है फिर अभी? कौस्तुभ.
Sir, are we taking LCM of 11 and 5?
I don't know. You define the problem for me. I don't know. Not ask for it.
No, sir.
I've given you the problem statement. Now you are the expert, not consultant. आप बताओ. And you're going to explain the team, so the team is going to work on that problem. So building the solution based on your idea.
Sir, I need time, sir.
You need time, okay. Prithviraj.
Division of two numbers which are multiple of first number should be multiple of 5 and second number should be multiple of 11 greater than 500.
Is that all?
And the result should be rounded off to 2 decimal.
Result should round up to 2 decimal point. Okay, Rahul?
We required integer having first integer having multiple of 5 and second having multiple of 11 and greater than 500, and we have to divide them as a to store result in such kind that second number divided by first number. Along with that, the result should be having accuracy up to 2 digits.
Okay. Shashwat?
Sir, we have to take a number which is divisible by 5 and also by 11, which is greater than 500, and also be rounded off to 2 decimal.
Shashwat, you're totally wrong. Others at least have given something right, but you have missed out on something totally. Repeat करना चाहोगे? Rather, it's wrong means you have missed out something totally. Viraj?
The desired result should be a decimal of 2 digits.
Decimal
And,
2 digit precision तक वाली चाहिए. Okay.
हाँ,
हाँ.
yes, sir. And it should be a multiple of 5. And
What?
first
Result?
digit. No. The first digit is the multiple of 5.
Digit or number? There's a difference between digit and number. Huh? Number currently 756. Out of which digit is 7, 5 and 6. So are you talking about digit or the number?
Sir, the number.
Number. Huh?
First number is multiple of 5. Second one is multiple of 11. And it should be above 500.
It means what? The first or the second?
The second one, sir.
Okay.
And there are you should divide them to get that desired
Divide
result.
them. What are we supposed to divide with what? So divide them with is all confusing. You said divide them. Ashish should divide the first to the second. Bhagesh should divide the second to the first. So divide them कैसे चलेगा?
The first digit and the second, first number and the second number.
इसको किसके साथ divide करना है?
Sir, the multiple numbers, multiples of 5 and 11.
Shashwat, then you have probably not understood the problem. Think over again. ये क्या गलत बोल रहे हैं आप? What you are saying, it's like the Chinese whisper. याद है Chinese whisper? You start with some story and at the end जो 10वां आदमी सुनता है वो कुछ और ही story बन जाती है. तो Ashwish whispers in the Shashwat के कान में कुछ story बोलता है. Shashwat narrates the story to Kaustubh. Kaustubh narrates to Bhagesh. Bhagesh to Aditya. Aditya to Viraj. And from Viraj, when it comes to me, it's a totally different story than what I had told Ashish. ये Chinese whisper के ऐसा हो रहा है. आप कुछ totally miss कर रहे हो. Shreyash?
By taking two integers, one which is multiple of 5 and second which is multiple of 11 and greater than 500, display the result after dividing second integer by first till 2 decimal places.
Second by first and 2 decimal places. Sairam?
Question क्या है?
I'll repeat the question. It is like you are supposed to define a problem. And for you to define the problem, there's a client whom you are facing and client is describing the problem to you. He says, I need to accept an integer. The integer that you have accepted should be multiple of 5. If you find an integer which is multiple of 5, only then you're going to accept another integer which should be greater than 500, but multiple of 11. If you find such a number, then you're going to divide the second number with the first number and display the result up to 2 decimal points. So that's a description of the problem that the client has given. And we are talking about the first step of problem solving, planning a problem, is to define a problem. Pehla step is define the problem.
Okay.
How would you go ahead defining this particular problem?
Accept an integer. Then check whether it's divisible by 5. If it's so, then proceed further. Accept the second integer that should be greater than 500 and it should be divisible by 11. If it's so, then proceed further. Divide the second number by first number.
There's something more. The answer should be only up to 2 decimal point. Result should be
Yeah. Last point I missed.
Kaustubh, you needed some time. I have given time now. Kaustubh, you said you needed time. कुछ आ रहा है दिमाग में? Kaustubh है क्या?
Sir,
Okay, so you want to, you said you needed time. Now I have given you enough time now. बोलोगे? Can't hear you, Kaustubh. Can't hear you. Could anybody hear Kaustubh what he's saying?
No, sir, not properly.
No, sir.
Yes, Kaustubh. Come.
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you are. Yes.
Sir, so we are taking two integer inputs from a user. First one is a table of 5.
Multiple of
or
five.
and yes, multiple of 5. Second one is second input is multiple of 11 but greater than 500, and we have to perform division operation on from second input to first input and derive a solution which is up to 2 decimal points accuracy.
Now, okay. Now ask yourself, all of you, most of you, somewhere only 2 people, Shashwata and Viraj, missed out on something. They did not tell the entire story. But rest, all of you, haven't you in almost same words repeated what I said? Or slightly different words repeated what I said?
Yes,
Ask
sir.
yourself.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Did you give anything different? You have just repeated what I said. Some of you have better English than mine, so you put in some right words. Some of your English may be slightly poor, so slightly wrong choice of word, but you narrated the entire story all over again. Yes or no? Ashish?
Yes, sir. Same as the question.
Same as the question, only you are reiterating the question. Okay, you had used a word like elaborate, but इसमें elaborate करने के लिए कुछ नहीं था, so you repeated whatever I said. शायद इसमें और मुश्किल होता तो आप उसे और आसान शब्दों में, or you would have explained it even still further. I give a story line of 5 lines. You may have elaborated to 10 lines if there was any more to elaborate. यहाँ कुछ elaborate करने जैसा था ही नहीं, so you only repeated what I said. Many amongst you have defined the problem. Defining is not expressing that idea again or the problem as what the client has described to you. The client is not a developer. He's not going to lead. He's not responsible for developing a solution. You are going to have a team to whom you have to tell them, what are we going to do? And then how are we going to do? That's a different story. What are we going to do? The central theme has to be identified. Once they understand whether I have to say you plan to take a journey, and or suppose you are planning for a vacation. If you are going to climb some mountain, the preparation that you will be very different. Then if you are going to go for swimming, what you will carry in your baggage will be something different. If you're going to go to a seashore, what you'll carry in your bag will be different. And if you're going to go for a trek, what you're going to carry in your bag luggage will be something totally different. And instead, if you're going to go to some other wetland, then what you're going to carry will be different. So unless you do not identify what is the central theme, there is no way you can begin building a solution to solve that particular problem. So here it was not about describing the thing in different words. It was an attempt to be made to define the problem. I said, just identify the central theme. The entire solution can be built around that particular central theme. Many of you have used that statement correctly, but then unnecessarily went on to add the complete description about what that problem was. So when you meet your client, identify whether he's expecting you to develop an ERP, whether he's expecting you to develop a process management system, whether he's expecting you to develop a sales management system. What exactly is the client looking out for? Identify how that sales management system works. That can be a different story. How inventory is to be managed, that can be a different story. But identify whether client is looking out for inventory management, client is looking out for process management, client is looking out for production management. What exactly is the problem, core theme? Once you identify that, then the rest of the things will come in place. So I did not give you a description. I will be giving you a description which could run 1 page. And again, from there, you have to identify that problem. That could be an exercise for us. But currently, in this particular short example that I've taken, the core theme was only something about Kaustuba and Prithviraj, somewhere they mentioned, and then I do not know why they went on to elaborate. Prithviraj started correctly, but went on to add unnecessary thing. Kaustuba in between used that particular term. It was nothing but division of 2 integers was the core problem. That is nothing more than that. So the central theme over here was division of 2 integers. Now, once you tell your team कि हमें ना ERP system design करना है, all of them are in the thought process as to हाँ ERP करना मतलब क्या करना है. फिर then ERP for what business, कैसे रहेगा, 2 नंबर को डिवाइड करना तो पहला नंबर कैसा चाहिए, दूसरा नंबर कैसा चाहिए, आंसर कैसा चाहिए. Are these not only the specifications as to what the input is, what the output is, and how the answer should be represented? But the central theme over here was division of 2 integers. So when you define the problem, the definition should be as short as possible and as precise. So division of 2 integers, अब पहले को दूसरे से डिवाइड करना है, दूसरे को पहले से डिवाइड करना है, that's not that very difficult. Okay, but division karna hai, that was the more important thing. So division of 2 integers was a simple definition that you can have. Once you identify the central theme, सोचो जरा division of 2 integers सोचा है आपने और मैंने कहा है, तो obviously आगे क्वेश्चन आ सकते हैं ना. तो पहला इंटीजर कैसा चाहिए, दूसरा इंटीजर कैसा चाहिए. These are only, I'll tell you, I'll use some right words over here. These are only once you identify the central theme, तो पहला इंटीजर कैसा चाहिए, that means there are some preconditions which are there. Okay, there are some specifications that this integer has to meet. Second integer कैसा चाहिए, there are some specification it has to meet. Answer कैसे display करना, there is some specification which has to meet. And this specification can keep on changing. I can make that changes later, but the central theme is the same, division of 2 integers. So once you identify that central theme, the core problem, then the entire solution can be built around that particular core problem. Now, can you divide 2 integers without accepting? And when you divide 2 integers, obviously there is going to be an output. How is that output to be represented? That's superficial. छोटी सी बात है. What is the nature of the input? What is the nature of the output? What is the format of the output? These things can be taken care of. These are constraints that are to be applied on the input and output. And the constraints have been very clearly specified by the client. So that shouldn't be bothering you. But you as a developer should identify the core theme. So once you identify that core theme, then it becomes easy for you to build a solution around that particular core theme. All of you agree? Yes or no? Or you still feel, you can always disapprove of what I say. Yeah? You could always challenge, and that leads to discussion. And this is all about learning. So I invite objections also. Agar aapko lagta hai aisa nahi, to I could take some other example, but this could be a smallish example that comes to my mind, which I have taken. Sairam and Shashwat and Shreyash and Ankita. Do you disapprove what I said, or Shashwat, Shreyash, Ankita?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Feedback tick karo. So defining a problem, which is very important. Don't worry about all the minutest detail while you're trying to define. That will come in the process. That could be the आप जो details मुझे बता रहे थे ना, that is the subsequent steps. But the first is the major issue. क्या करना है client के लिए? Okay, what kind of system are we going to develop for that particular client? So once you identify that, then you can actually come with some more proper questions that you are supposed to ask to the client as well. The problem in real life is never going to be this simple. It is going to be far more complex. So if you identify the core, then only can you ask some relevant questions to the client and get some additional information using which you can develop that system properly. So identify the core thing. But there is one more issue over here. ध्यान से देखो, यहाँ एक और एक issue है. What is that issue? Hint to the solution. Okay. Now the question is, okay, when you define the problem, the definition that you give, okay, should you, as a person who is defining the problem, should your problem definition carry hint to the solution? Like let's say Shashwat is my junior developer and Ashish is the senior guy, and in his team, Shashwat and Viraj are working. So Ashish planned to give this task to Viraj and Shashwat. Look at this. Ashish has 5 years experience. Viraj and Shashwat has 1 year experience. So Ashish is leading the team. Ashish now defines the problem to both these guys. He explains what the problem is. He gives the problem definition, the description as well as the definition. Because these juniors, they may not be in a position to define the problem correctly. So he gives the description that the client has given, and with his experience, he also gives the definition. कि exactly करना क्या है? ये पूरी story है, but what exactly has to be done that he gives to Viraj and Shashwat. Now my question to you is, while suppose you all are Ashish, Viraj भी आशीष ही है, तो आप जरा ऐसा सोचो कि अगर आप आशीष की पोजीशन पे हो, while you are defining the problem and you are giving it to your colleague, you are giving it to your junior, should your problem definition carry hint to the solution?
No, sir.
So जिनको नो लगता है वो क्रॉस करो, जिनको सॉल्यूशन में हिंट देना जरूर लगता है वो टिक करे. Ashish is senior guy who's going to lead the team. So should he give hint to the solution? Rahul, Ankita. Okay. Shresh, Shashwat, Rahul, Bhagyashree, and Ankita feels solution should be given, and others feel solution should not be given. Either of you may be right or wrong, but let's try and judge both the answers. Shresh, why do you feel you should give a hint to the solution?
So the junior guy may not know exactly what to do because he does not have that much experience.
But you have told him now what is to be done.
But still that will help him to work on the problem.
Oh. When we give hint, it is not about what is to be done. Defining itself will tell you what is to be done. Giving hint means how is it to be done? Are you getting the difference between what and how?
Yes, sir.
So defining is explaining him what is to be done. Hint is explaining him how is that thing to be done. वो काम करने में उसे आसानी हो इसलिए हम लोग hint देते हैं. So एक है what, and second is how. So defining helps him to understand what is to be done. Hint helps him to explain, understand how is it to be done. Ankita, why do you feel we need to give a hint?
Sir, because if the senior person gives tasks to the junior people, and then the team will take time for thinking and planning everything. So if the senior gives a hint, so it makes it easier and the time is less wasted.
That's a very valid point. Chances of the solution going wrong will be reduced. Senior है, आपके पास experience है, तो आपको junior को सोचने की जरूरत नहीं रहेगी. Boss is always right. So he implements the solution. Ankita, why don't you put on your camera on? आप सो गए क्या? So when
No, sir.
Then turn on your camera. So
Okay.
when the hint has been given, so what happens is the juniors does not have to think. He can only go ahead implementing that particular idea. So the chances of that solution going wrong will be reduced. They can develop that particular solution more quickly. Time that is required to develop the solution will also come down. So there is a solid reason why a hint should be given. There is a solid reason. Bhagyashree, why do you feel that hint has to be given?
Yes, sir. As Ankita said, juniors के लिए easier रहेगा और हमारा
easier रहेगा.
time का भी waste नहीं होगा.
Time भी waste नहीं होगा. Rahul?
Sir, time is
Anything
time
other
is
than what?
direct.
Okay.
Time and sir, he can better understand what the problem.
Okay, sir. Understand क्या definition तो boss is already
नहीं, जैसे सर अभी इस हमने पिछले एग्जांपल में देखा डिवीजन ऑफ टू इंटीजर्स बोला है सर, लेकिन अगर उसमें अगर हमने बोला रहता कि डिवीजन ऑफ टू इंटीजर्स विद मल्टीपल ऑफ 5 and 11 तो और अच्छे से थोड़ा हिंट मिला.
Hint is about how the division could have been done. It was about how to perform the division. So understand, defining, I am again repeating, defining is what is to be done. Giving hint is how is it that to be done. वो काम कैसे करना है उसका hint है. Okay, Shashwat, why do you feel hint has to be given?
Sir, the resources and time will be decreased, and
Okay.
also the errors will be decreased.
Okay. And time is directly proportional to cost. जितना ज़्यादा time उतना ज़्यादा cost, जितना कम
Yes.
समय उतना कम cost. Okay, so you all had some valid reasons to give a hint, but then we have some of our friends who do not. Ashish, you are the first one to say a hint is not to be given. Important. कहते आपने कहा hint नहीं देना है. Why that was so spontaneous? Hint क्यों नहीं देना है? When there are such solid reasons why we should.
सर
give a hint.
अगर हिंट ही देना होता तो फिर एक ही सीनियर डेवलपर होता और सब लोग टाइपराइटर होते.
Here's another thing, like hint देना है तो एक ही senior developer होता है and बाकी तो you are the team leader ना, तो एक पूरे प्रोजेक्ट में तो आप टीम में तो एक ही टीम लीडर, बाकी तो डेवलपर आपके हाथ के नीचे काम कर रहे हैं. That's the actual case in the company.
सो सर हिंट भी हम दे तो फिर वो डेवलपर नहीं, वो टाइपराइटर हो गए.
अच्छा, तो फिर वो सोचने वाले बंदे नहीं है. They are only people who are doing donkey work. यानी
यस
आप ही प्रॉब्लम डिफाइन करो. डिफाइन भी आप ही ने किया हुआ है, क्लाइंट से आप ही ने बात की है, आप ही
टिल
ने डिफाइन किया है, उसके ऊपर हिंट भी दे दे तो अच्छा खुद कोड ही लिख दे.
टिल सीनियर जब तक डिफाइन नहीं करेगा तब तक वो आगे काम नहीं करेंगे.
But
तो फिर टाइम
understand,
का
okay, your concern is very valid that if I have a junior, if he calls himself a developer, he is not a typewriter. Your statement is very strong. ऐसा नहीं कहना चाहिए किसी को typewriter, but अगर वो है typewriter भी है, but you still require a lot of typewriters because
Sir.
typing के लिए भी तो समय लगता है ना. That you alone typing is better that 5 people को अलग-अलग काम typing कर दे दिया. What you could do in 5 days, this typist could finish in another 2 days. In 2 days, you still require those people who do not
Sir,
apply their
but
brain.
he will not type till you give him the hint.
Correct. वो हो सकता है, वो हो सकता है. You make them lazy fellow. That could be the case. Yes, somebody else was trying to say something.
Yes, sir. I was saying that it's not necessary that they won't use their brains or anything. Like
Yeah.
if the senior person gives one approach to solve the problem, and it could be old, and if the junior has an new approach to that problem, then it can also be used.
It can also be used. Sairam, why were you next to Ashish? You put a cross mark immediately. Why?
Sir, the same, because junior can come up with new ideas that can lead to solution of the problem at earliest as well.
But junior can also go wrong, and that time
Yeah,
earlier it can
It's
be
both
delayed.
ways. It's
So-
both ways.
To take a chance of delay in completion of the project.
It depends on time, how much time we have.
Right. So you as a senior, what will you do?
If it's time constraint, then the hint which we are giving is proven, then no issues in giving it.
You are senior, yeah. You are expert. आपका जो hint है, that's always going to work. There is no reason why it will fail, because you have worked on similar projects earlier. Since you have worked on similar projects earlier, your hint is definitely perfect. Hint गलत तो देने वाले नहीं आप.
Then we can give hint if time is less.
You can, if there is a rider, if.
Yes.
Okay, Viraj.
सर मोस्टली मेरा भी कंसर्न लेजीनेस से रिलेटेड था, जैसे आशीष ने कहा. बट आपको कंपनी ट्रेन भी कर सकती है बिफोर. सो इफ योर बॉस keeps telling you all the time, then it will waste time also in giving solution all the time. So if you have worked before on that same topic or maybe same problem, you can handle it more easily or in a better way without taking help of your senior. That's what I feel.
Prithviraj. Yes, Prithviraj.
Not giving the hint, like the juniors might come up with a better solution, and in case like if there's a deadline, then you can just give some time to them to think about the question, and then give a hint after that, after listening to what they have come up with.
Okay. Aditya.
Yes, sir. I feel giving hint is a bad idea, because if we give hint to the junior, then how far we will not have an idea that how far he can think about the given solution or about that problem, and we will not find it his potential about solving that problem of particular problem, or how far
Companies,
could he go to.
companies
Yes,
really
sir.
interested in exploring your potential as a developer? Do they really?
Mm, Sir, for delegating any task, I mean future task, it should be concerned that how far that employee can go to solve any problem.
Look at Sairam, how we are smiling. He's already into industry. Nobody damn cares about how far will you go. Very rarely will have a boss which will think about how far will you go. You let me give them an opportunity. They are more interested in getting the job done. Kaam khatam ho jaye, aage chalo. Dostu, why do you feel he should not be given?
Sir, I think we are more focused on problem right now. So we are identifying the cause, not thinking out solution yet. So that's why I don't think the hint is necessary.
So what's the harm in giving the hint?
Sir, I think it confuses people. So we need to be really specific about what exactly the problem is, and
Look at this. I said you have defined the problem. So you are a boss, you
yes.
have correctly defined the problem. You have identified what the problem is. So what has been already taken care of? Now
Yes.
it's time for us to later, after identifying later somewhere down the line, he's going to implement that particular thing. He's going to
Yes.
solve that problem. For solving, should we give a hint? Problem kya is what? Defining problem is identifying what is the problem. And providing hint is to provide him a help so that he can use some idea to solve that particular problem. So one is what, another is how. So how,
Yes.
बताने में क्या हर्ज है? How to solve the problem?
नहीं
What
सर,
to it?
सो आप बता रहे थे कि हम जब डिफाइन कर रहे हैं प्रॉब्लम तभी हिंट देने
तभी
का ना?
देने, हाँ.
हाँ, तो सर that's my point, sir, that it is
You
not
can give
necessary
hint
to give hint.
now. So you say hint should be given later?
Yes, sir. First, we have to exactly find the problem or cause of the problem. So
That is
we
what
have
we are
to keep it
defining,
short
na?
and simple.
Correct. That's what we are defined. So you say
Sir.
hint can be given, but later, after a few more stages.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So at this stage, I think it is not necessary.
Now let's talk about it. Let's talk about it because this is something very important. Now, what happens is, surprisingly, Ankita said something, and she was more concerned about giving hint. Her reason for giving hint was to bring down the time that is required for development of that particular task. That was the major concern. Chances of errors will go down. Possibility of you coming with the correct solution will increase. That was her major concern. And those who said, yes, we should give hint, they were all somewhere around that story itself. They wanted to reduce the chance of some. Let's take an example. Say I have 20 plus years of experience. I have worked on similar kind of projects earlier. Okay, I did my learning schoolings long time back, say in late 80s, early 90s, I have completed. So I had some kind of exposure. I developed a similar kind of system 15 years back. And now after 10 years or 15 years, we come across similar kind of problem. And I had previously developed a solution for that particular system earlier, similar kind of system. Now I have a team, you all are my team members. Since I had already worked on a project and that system is currently in use, so I know for sure my idea works because I already had developed similar kind of system earlier. So today, if I give a hint, that will definitely be correct because I previously have worked on maybe 2-3 systems in the past. Correct? So the solution that you will implement based on my hint will definitely be working. So a workable solution rahega because I have that enough of experience, and with my experience, I can tell you what I have done earlier was correct. And this is applicable over here. And if you implement it the way I ask you to implement, if you implement it correctly, the solution that is definitely going to work. So it is a sound reason. So there is a sound justification as to why hint should be given, because hint dene par possibility of errors will come down. The speed with which we can develop an application that will increase. So there's a strong justification for it. But believe me, in ideal scenario, okay, wo Sairam jo if laga raha tha. So in ideal scenario, we should never give a hint to that solution. Reasons are more stronger than possibility of you going wrong. I'll tell you what. I said I had an experience of working on that project. 15 years I have been working on that project. 20 years I have been working on project. The project I had implemented 10 years back. I come with some kind of exposure. You are in an age, probably you have done some different exposures because every new engineer who will be working will come with different exposure. Probably, if I do not give you a hint, you may come with a solution which is far better than what I had implemented 3 times earlier. Now, or it may be poorer than what I have designed it earlier. Both the possibility exist. You come with a solution that is better than what I had done. You may come with a solution which is worse than what I have done. Both possibly exist when I do not give you a hint. Yes or no, everybody?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Now, think about a scenario. I'm the boss. I had already implemented that idea. I know how good my idea is. When you give me a solution, who is the best person to identify whether solution is better than my idea or worse than my idea? Who is the best person to identify that?
Yourself, sir.
Myself, because I already have a past experience of a project. Now you are coming with an idea. You may not be very clear about whether it will work or not, but with my experience, I can definitely compare my previous implementation and your idea and decide whether your idea is better or my idea is better, what I had in my mind. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And there exists an opportunity. If I find that your idea is better, I may go ahead implementing that idea with some modification, suggestion, whatever it is. And if I find your idea is not as good as what I have thought about, I could ask you to implement the same idea. Or I could provoke you to think differently and force you to come with a better idea. See, what happens is, if I give you a hint right away, product that will be developed will be as good or as bad as what was designed 10 years back. It will never be an improvement, no chance of improvement at all. Is there any scope of improvement if I give a hint? It will be as good or as bad as what I had done because the same idea being implemented. Now, when I do not give you a hint, that's the only way we provide an opportunity for some improvement in that particular idea. And one thing is guaranteed by not giving hint. It will not be bad than what I had done earlier. एक तो guarantee है ना, एक assurance है ना, it will not be bad than what I had done earlier. So worst case में क्या रहेगा in that case? If I do not give a hint, what would the worst case be? Yes, Ashish? सबके आइडिया गलत है, पूरे टीम मेंबर एक ने भी आइडिया सही नहीं दिया. Even then are we going to, will I allow you to implement the wrong idea?
No.
Then the solution that we come up with will be based on what idea that I have in my mind.
Yes.
So it is as bad or as good as the previous one.
Yes.
तो worst case scenario में क्या होगा? जो पहले phase में by giving a hint, what was the best case?
टाइम कम लगेगा.
Time कम लगेगा. That was the best case. But the solution आ रहा है उसका quality was as good or as bad it was earlier.
Same as previous.
Same as previous. That was the best case.
Yes, sir.
Now, by not giving a hint, the worst case is the solution is as same as previous. That is the worst case.
Yes, sir.
And best case scenario?
So getting new idea to implement it faster.
Innovation.
Yes.
Innovative. So if you want to bring any innovation, if you want to improve on that particular code, if you want to improve the quality of your code, the ideas, unless you until you do not give an opportunity, there is where product development companies differ from service industry. Now in software also, we have some companies which are focusing on product. Look at that MS Office. Ask yourself, Aditya, tell me, when is the first time when you used Word, Excel, PowerPoint? How many years back?
Sir, maybe 10.
10 years back. And in
Yes,
Word,
sir.
you used to do calculations 10 years back?
No, no,
No. And in Excel, you used to type letters?
no.
No. 10 years back
No.
also, Excel used for calculation and
Yes,
Word
sir.
used for typing. Today also
Yes,
you
sir.
do the same thing. When is the last
Yes.
time that you had used Word for MS Office? कब last time use किया था?
Sir, for making a resume, maybe a month ago.
Month ago. तो 10
sir.
साल से इस month तक भी आप use कर रहे हो?
Yes, sir.
Is it the same what it was 10 years back?
No, sir. Update हो गया.
Update? Totally changed?
Yes, sir. Totally changed.
The basic core idea is the same, but the performance, the simplicity
Features,
of
new
use,
features.
features, okay, it's more easy for you to not memorize anything and still achieve the same thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So by not giving a hint, you create a possibility. It's a possibility. No assurance. But worst case kya hai? Solution is as bad as the previous one. But by not giving a hint, you create a possibility of the dumbest person in your team may come with a fantastic idea which you have not even imagined. How can you take somebody for granted? And second thing is what Ashish was saying, if you have to be too rude, you are paid for doing that particular thing. You are paid for thinking. Company is paying for you for thinking. You could be some rude boss will say that statement, but then that exists a possibility if you give a chance to the people. And look at this, what Ankita was saying, I still disagree to her. Why? She said, if you give them, her argument was the same, but then she said, by giving hint, we do not do anything, no harm. Tell me amongst you, when you are given a hint, how many of you will really think about different idea when the boss has given a hint? Ask yourself and tell me. When is a critical task to be implemented, boss has given you a hint, will you still take that chance of experimenting when the boss is already giving a hint? Colleague ne hint diya to shayad aap sochoge thoda alag, because you are skeptical about his correctness. When boss is providing you assurance ki maine diya hai wo sahi hai, will you even have the courage to think about something different?
No.
So you kill that particular possibility of innovation. So you as a boss should never give a hint, because then you are restricting or you are eliminating that possibility of improvement in that particular solution. So if you want improvement, you definitely have to give an opportunity for people to think, but that will come at a cost of time probably, but that may not be an endless process. Ki abhi zindagi bhar sochte raho, jab tak improvement nahi hoga. You come with ideas. If your idea is better, we'll implement that. If not, the boss already has his own idea. That does not mean while you define the problem, you should give an hint, because it's a human tendency. We all are lazy at heart. Hint denge na, so we'll only think in that direction. We'll close all other options which are there. It's a human tendency, and don't tell me you don't have that tendency. Okay, hint dene par we always start thinking, oh, if this is what is going to take me to that destination, let me follow it. Kyun dimag pe jor dale? And that is what happens. And if you really want to encourage people to grow, if you really want to give that opportunity for your product quality to be improved, then definitely you should not be giving a hint. Sairam, you wanted to share something?
Yes, sir. It
Please.
was the experience in training. So there are depth values for any.
Okay, hold on. I know the context. People don't know the context. Sairam was working in TCS, and he was working on projects which was involved in some very sensitive project for Indian Army, Indian Navy, where he was working on some projects based on submarines. So that is a context. Otherwise, he'll talk and only I'll understand, and others will keep on wondering what he is speaking about. So he was working in TCS earlier. That was his first job. And his task was to develop some components for Indian Navy, and that too for submarines. Now you can tell, Sarah.
Yeah, so everyone knows that submarine is not on surface, it's inside the surface of water. So whenever submarine submerged in water, so there are some depth sensors which gives the values of depth, how much submarine is inside the water. So majorly there are three main depth sensor. So generally for calculation of accurate depth, because those sensors are highly calibrated, there will be a point of error as well. So to calibrate the average value of error, means generally if we want to take an average of any three values, we just add those three values and divide by 3 and take an average. But to get more precise average, there was one new idea. So first you have to take average of two values which are most differing in their mean values, and then you can take that average with another value to get final average.
Does that really work? That's
Yes.
new for me. Huh?
Yes. Yes.
Look at this.
It means quite simple. Means whenever we think of average, we always think that just
Sum
add
and
all
divide.
numbers and divide by number of values.
Small things can make a difference. And how critical it would be for a submarine to know the exact depth, what it has been. Okay, if that particular calculation would be a matter of life and death. Okay, winning and losing the battle, not knowing where exactly at what depth that particular submarine is. And these are small things. I could cite one more similar example of a military application where there was one Mr. Deshmukh from Pune, and DRDO, when they were developing the missiles, and DRDO were developing missile. DRDO is in Pune, and they were developing missile. They couldn't even test fire that missile, because before the missile is fired, there are a lot of tests that they do, because they do not want to waste the missile. It's very costly. And they used to realize some part of that missile used to get heated up to such an extent that they knew on the flight course itself it will blast. So they were wondering, what is the reason we have done this thing perfectly, and why is that missile getting heated up? And they used to, when countdown starts, they have to stop that particular countdown in between, because the parameters were going out of the range. And these people were wondering, all these scientists were wondering, what is the cause, and they could not figure it out. And believe me, it took them several months to figure out. One mathematician they invited, and that luckily was from Pune. He was also invited to work on that particular calculations. What exactly is happening? Where are they going wrong? And believe me, it was a simple pi error that was there. The value of pi was not that accurate, and that pi error was introducing that particular bug in that missile. Now, how could you think about pi, that value that you have taken? It was not precise, and that was creating the heating problem in that missile. Doing the calculation, Mr. Deshmukh identified it, and he was awarded for it, because it was, that project was delayed by 3 months just because of that one error. Just because of that. So that opportunity when you give for people to think, that only brings about improvement in the solution. So, and that is something that has to be encouraged. Otherwise, boss ne kaha it is good. Otherwise, the previous missile could be as good or as bad as the new missile. So new missile could be as bad as the previous missile, or as good as. So naya missile kyun bana rahe, wahi udao na. So if you want to bring about some innovation, improvement, you have to have that opportunity that you should give for others to come with something innovative. I hope this thing is clear. Anybody has any questions? Although we spent too much of time talking about one point, but then when you think about giving hint, think twice. The problem definition should not carry hint to the solution to the problem. You're paying the developer to think, to let them think and come with something innovative. That is the basic objective of, or the role the developer has to play. They are, as Ashish said, they should not be typewriter, they should be thinking people. So we want thinkers, not just somebody who will type. Okay.
Sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, but if you have a time constraint and you need innovation as well, then what will you choose first?
That's what I said. That is what the balance that the good managers do. They give you an opportunity to think. Thinking does not mean you're going to spend time implementing the code. Major time is invested in implementing the idea. Thinking and come with an idea is not that time consuming. So we give time to the team to think, and the boss will, with his experience, is a good judge to identify whether this idea will work or not work. If he can compare and identify whether the idea will work or not work, then you have to go by his decision whether we'll implement that idea that he has selected or not. It is not that you come with an idea and me as a boss will give you a chance to implement that idea, and then later we are going to find whether it is a correct one or not. No. The decision whether that idea should be implemented or not will be done very early at this stage itself when you come with a solution. Okay, the solution ideas will come later, but if you do not, and as Kaustubh was trying to tell us, it's too early for us to give a hint. It's too early, and that's also correct. Itne jaldi hint bhi dena chahiye. Agar dena bhi hai to itne jaldi nahi dena chahiye. Because by now, we are still not gathered enough information to proceed with the development of the problem. So this is not the right time to give the hint. Agar dena bhi hai to baad mein. Main to kehta hu do tab, when the team gives you some suggestions, uske baad hint do. That should be the last one. If the team fails to come up with a good idea, then you could give an hint. But pehle se hint doge, so that will just stop them from thinking. So time constraint, you should not bother much. Why I'll tell you? Because we are not going to spend weeks, we are not going to spend month come with an idea. There will be very limited time to come with an idea. Implementation takes more time. Thinking is more important. Implementation is time consuming. So we are just talking about idea. We are not talking about implementation. Is that okay, Viraj?
Yes, sir.
The second step is identify the requirements. Okay. So once you understood what is the problem, then you have to identify the requirements. It requires interaction between programmer and the user. You are new to that particular function domain. You do not understand anything about banking. You don't understand anything about insurance. You don't understand anything about manufacturing. So talk to the client. Gather as much information from the client. Although you are behaving like an expert, don't make false claims of you knowing everything. Don't say I know everything. Ask n number of questions to the client. Understand from the client's experience what exactly the system is. So ask client questions and gain information about what that functional job profile is. वो क्या काम है? Understand it from the client. Understand the problem specifications. Now there where we come in the last question जो था problem specification से input कैसा चाहिए, output कैसा चाहिए. They are all problem specifications. Understand what are the specifications, some guidelines that has to be met. What is the input data? When we talk about input data, don't just ask what is the number, integer चाहिए, real number चाहिए. उसका type कैसा होना चाहिए, उसकी accuracy कैसे होनी चाहिए, उसके units of measurements क्या है, उसका range क्या है, उसका format क्या है, उसका location क्या है, उसका sequence क्या है, and so on. These units had created, go and do a Google search. These units created, had generated a loss of several $1 million for NASA. क्या कह रहा हूं मैं? Several $1 million for NASA. I'll just tell a short, the story in short. All big organizations do not do everything from scratch on their own. Some components they hire from somewhere and some components they hire from somewhere, and then they assemble together to create that particular system. It's not like when we launch a satellite, we do everything on our own. That never really happens. We get different components from different places. European companies, American companies are way ahead in terms of space research. Way ahead. We are also catching up very fast, but they are way ahead. So NASA was working on some space project. And the European countries have come together to create a consortium, a group of European countries, and they all together, I forgot what that group is called as, they develop solutions for space. They develop solutions for space research. Okay. So NASA had given some task to the European consortium. Is your name मालूम है European consortium का नाम क्या है? There is some European consortium. I just forgot. NASA had given that task, some job to be done. And then that job was implemented by NASA because it was time tested. That thing was working correctly in European space projects. So they took that particular thing in the American project, they implemented it, and that project failed, totally failed. That launch got lost on its way. It went off the track and so on. Means it did not go into the orbit that one, and it is billions of dollars are lost in seconds. Billions of dollars are lost in seconds. And believe me, when they did the back research, they realized the problem was in units of measurement, because Americans follow one unit of European Union Agency for Space Program. Probably that is, Sairam, that's correct. So the we have those two ways of measurement, a metric system, and second is what?
Imperial.
Imperial, na? So Americans uses one system and Europeans use another system. So when the calculations were done, the European had done the calculation in one metric, one system, and Americans took the result in another system. So units of measurement created loss of millions of dollars. How simple that problem was. It's how easy it is to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit and so on. But then if you forget, and the European company is giving you temperature in Celsius, and if it was 35 degrees Celsius, American consider that 35 as 35 degrees Fahrenheit, things will totally go wrong. Because 35 degrees Celsius would be several more degrees Fahrenheit. Yes or no? And that entire project, like billions of dollars were lost just because units were not taken correctly for the input. So when you talk about input, the type, the accuracy, the units, the range, the format, the location, the sequence, everything matters. When is that input taken? Where is that input taken? What format the input comes in? What is the range of input? What's the unit of input? What's the accuracy with which you have to take? Okay, type. Sairam gave us an example of accuracy. All those things are very, very important. Same is the case with output. So when you talk about output data, what is the type of the output data? What is accuracy? जो हम लोग कहते हैं 2 डिजिट प्रिसिशन तक चाहिए, 3 डिजिट प्रिसिशन तक चाहिए, यूनिट्स क्या है, रेंज क्या है, फॉर्मेट क्या है, लोकेशन also matters at times. So lot of things. Say when you talk about your weight on the earth will be very different than your weight on the moon. So where you weigh yourself, that could also be matter of concern. Okay, so where that input comes in, that's also very important. Input क्या है, output क्या है, and constraints क्या है, limitations क्या है. In our case, the constraint was the first number should be divisible by so and so, second number should be divisible by so and so, second number should be greater than so and so. These are constraints. And the output should be displayed up to 2 decimal point. That was accuracy for the output. So all those things needs to be correctly documented, not just read, documented, so that you do not forget about what are the specifications. So identify the requirement, understand the problem specification, mention every specification in detail, pen it down, and then proceed. Don't jump over. Identify the problem specifications. Is that okay? And I gave you example of that, what happened with that European and American companies, because the measurement unit was different in the calculations, and they used the output of the European companies, where probably they use metric, and here they use imperial. Is it imperial? What we say, is that right? What Viraj said? एक तो metric system है. What is the second one? Imperial only? Something else. Celsius and Fahrenheit. ये दो कौन से अलग है?
सर imperial वो kilometers दिखाता है ना, and metric is miles. Yeah,
Okay,
opposite.
okay. Then that's correct. That similar kind of differences happened in the calculation. फिर वही इसी के लिए भी affect करता ना फिर. Yeah, Celsius and Fahrenheit के लिए भी affect करेगा. Okay. Pounds and kgs को affect करेगा, kind of thing. Americans measure in pounds, Europeans measure in kgs, kind of thing. Okay, so these units can also create a problem. So input क्या है, output क्या है, constraints क्या है, all of those things will matter. So identify the requirements very well. If you do not identify the requirements, computers work on a principle of garbage in, garbage out. If the input is wrong, however good your process may be, output is going to be wrong. Look what I'm saying. Huh? If your input is wrong, however good your process is, output will still be wrong. Say, if I ask you that we have to create a machine for crushing the sugarcane to create juice. The juice making machine is what you have to create. And you put with all the efforts, you create a juice machine. The crusher is what you create. So the crusher crushes whatever you put in and it gives the juice. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
No. If you put in sugarcane, then you'll get a juice. Sugarcane jagah bamboo dal diya input, will you still get a juice? So garbage in, garbage out. Wrong input. The crusher is good. The process is good. The crusher was very nicely created. It was maybe a German make crusher, perfect crusher. Are input hi galat hai, so output to will go wrong. However good that crusher may be. The process may be very well, your program may be very well, but input that goes wrong, that is wrong. If it does not satisfy all the constraints, then the output is definitely going to be wrong. So you have to be very careful, give utmost importance to this particular concept of the problem specification. Identify the input, identify the output, identify the constraints that they have to meet. वो conditions जो थे आपके, identify those constraints. When you talk about input, identify the format, type, range, location, sequence. All those things are very important. Unless we don't always expect that the input will come from the keyboard. Don't do that. Identify what is the source, from where the input will come, whether it's going to come from the file, whether it's going to come from the network, whether it's going to come from the sensor. So we should be knowing that. Okay, unless we have not identified the requirements, the constraints, however good solution you may design, things will not work well. Now, once you have identified, perform these two steps, the third thing is about algorithms. Is all about idea, the concepts, or the techniques, which we when implement will solve the problem for you. So it is step-by-step operations that we have to perform. So when somebody says logic, when somebody says idea, somebody says concept, somebody says technique, वो कुछ नहीं algorithm है, it's just an idea. So idea is another word for algorithm. Okay, that you have in your mind. But when you feel, if I implement that idea, it will give you the solution to that particular problem. It will solve that particular problem. So algorithm is nothing but step-by-step set of steps for carrying out tasks that can be written down and implemented. ऐसा idea नहीं है which cannot be brought into reality. It's a idea that you can specify step by step so that it can be implemented on the computer and you can get it solved. We can make it work. The idea should be workable. It is step-by-step description of how to arrive at a solution of a given problem. So there is a problem. So step-by-step description as to how will you arrive to the solution to that problem. That is nothing but algorithm. Simple and straightforward. It is set of steps for carrying out tasks that can be written down and it can be implemented. That means we should be in a position to develop a program based on it. It is step-by-step description as to how to arrive at a solution to a given problem. So there is a problem. We need to generate a solution to that problem. So the description as to how will you generate solution to that given problem is nothing but our algorithm. So suppose you have asked to design an algorithm. So step-by-step description of how to bake a cake. Oh, we can very easily specify how to bake a cake. We can say you can keep the oven for heating up to 325 Fahrenheit. तो आपने उसको set कर लिया कि वो oven तब तक heat हो जाए. While this oven is being heated, you will gather all the ingredients. Okay, maybe the bowl, the spoon, the flour, the butter, the sugar, the milk, the eggs. You'll get all the ingredients. And then you'll mix all those ingredients thoroughly in the bowl, and then you will mix them together. Okay, third step. Once that has been done, you'll pour that particular mixture into the pan. Once you have poured that mixture into the pan, you'll put that pan into the oven. You'll put that pan into the oven, okay, for 50 minutes based on your experience. And once after 15 minutes, that pan, that oven, it has been baked, you will get that particular thing out. And once you get that thing out of the oven, 15 minutes आपने bake किया था, but there can be different consistency, how much water you had added in that particular mixture. Based on that, it may take maybe more time, slightly less time, whatever may happen. So based on experience, at least 50 minutes are required. So you bake that particular cake for 50 minutes, but once you get that baked cake out of that oven after 50 minutes, you'll take your spoon, or you will take a knife and check whether that particular cake is spongy enough. If it is not spongy enough, okay, it doesn't bounce back in between, that means it is still some raw, you'll again put it inside the oven for another 5 minutes. Again, get it back from the oven from 5 minutes after 5 minutes and check whether it's spongy enough. If it is not, again put into, you'll keep on repeating that particular thing as long as till the time the cake doesn't become spongy enough. When you realize the cake has become spongy enough, then you take that cake out of that particular thing. You cool the cake on the rack and then cut it and serve it to your client. Yes or no?
Yes.
So it is just a recipe as to how you can go ahead carrying out a problem, come with a solution to a problem. So whenever a problem has been given to us, when you have identified all the requirements, kaisa chahiye client ko, kitna chahiye, in what format he wants, then you can design that particular recipe as to how. The recipe cannot come without understanding what exactly the output is. Requirement kya hai malum nahi hai. So second step was also very important. Understand the requirements. Agar client ne kya manga hai malum nahi, and you create something for the client what he is not. He asks for 1 kg cake, can you give half a kg cake? Nahi chalega. So understand the requirement, the format, उसका शेप कैसा होना चाहिए, उसका टेस्ट क्या होना चाहिए, which chocolate cake चाहिए, कौन सा चाहिए, उसके टॉपिंग क्या चाहिए. Understand all the requirements. Understand what are the input that should go in what format, when, what should be done. And have you understood? Yeah, sequence there. Those first 4-5 steps we carried in sequence, and then at the end we carried out something repeatedly. We went on carrying out baking the cake again and again for 5 minutes till the time that condition was not satisfied. The cake was not spongy enough. तब तक आप वो चीज repeat करते रहे. यानी iteration है, repetitive task है. So when you're designing solution, it's nothing but you express the steps that one should follow so that the objectives can be fulfilled. But for you to come with this algorithm, it is necessary that you have to identify the problem. It is necessary that you understand the requirements. You identify all the constraints which are there, limitations. Time hai, cost hai. Cost and time can also be a constraint. You identify all the constraints, and then you come with an algorithm which will satisfy those constraints, So when you are asked to design the algorithm, first understand the problem, start by recording steps that you should take to solve the problem manually, specify how to manipulate the information that you have gathered, specify what the algorithm should display as a solution. So algorithm design करते समय भी इन चीजों के बारे में सोचो. Understand the problem, define the problem, understand the requirement. Start by recording the step that you should take to solve the problem manually. Paper पे करना है मुझे solve, not on the machine. So identify, start recording कि क्या करना चाहिए, start specifying it. Then think about how do I carry out those operations, manipulations कैसे करूँ. Specify what algorithm should display as a solution, यानी output क्या आना चाहिए, specify that. So those are the things that you should keep in mind while you design the solution. When you talk about characteristics of an algorithm, so algorithm कैसा चाहिए? To qualify as an algorithm, what idea you have come up with in your mind, उसे algorithm कहने के लिए what characteristics should it have? The sequence of instruction must have the following characteristics. कौन सा? Every instruction may be precise and unambiguous. Confusing statement नहीं चाहिए. Precise चाहिए, clear चाहिए. It should clearly specify what is to be done. So every instruction must be precise and unambiguous, without any confusion. Unambiguous, precise, accurate, and unambiguous. Each instruction should be such that it can be performed within a finite time. That finite time can be 1 millisecond or it could be 1 day, but it should be getting over within a finite time. You shouldn't position tell us how much time will it take to perform that particular operation. It could be as less or as more what you want, but it should be finite. It should not be infinite. Kab khatam hoga ye task malum nahi. No, each instruction should be such that it can be performed within a finite time. One or more instructions should not be repeated infinitely, so the algorithm terminates untimely, ultimately. So it shouldn't happen that your program just doesn't stop. It just keeps on doing the task. What we normally call it gets hanged. The program should not get hanged. It should get completed. One or more instructions should not be repeated infinitely. You should never land up into an infinite loop. The program should get terminated at some point of time. ऐसा नहीं हो कि program crash हो जाए. After the algorithm terminates, the result must be obtained. And once that task has been done, the statements which are precise, unambiguous, and you are very sure about what is the time that they will take to get that work done. There is no infinite kind of statements that not a program which will never stop. And when it stops, it should give you the desired results. We have not yet written the code. It is only about the algorithm. So you should provide guarantee that this algorithm will have all these characteristics. And if you can provide me assurance that algorithm guarantees you, promises you, makes a statement ki are ye sab kuch hoga, then only we'll think about implementing that particular algorithm. But there are a few more steps that I'll discuss tomorrow regarding the algorithm before you even start writing the code. But these are the characteristics that your algorithm should satisfy while you are thinking about building a solution based on that problem. So now we have to also look as to how are we going to represent the algorithm. So tomorrow, or I'll just finish up it quickly. Can I continue for another 5 minutes and then we can stop for today? Will that be okay? So that stage will be completed. Yes, everybody? Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
let's another 5 minutes, not much, because there is nothing much to discuss now. But algorithm was your idea. But that idea was in your mind. आपके mind के अंदर तो आके मैं नहीं दे सकता as a boss or as a guy, junior as well. Boss के दिमाग में idea and I understand, we connect, we hold each other's hand and the idea is transferred in my mind. That doesn't happen. It may have happened that Avatar film that they connect by some way and their ideas are transferred. That in the real life doesn't happen, transferring that idea. So how do you know? How do you convey your idea to team members? You have to represent your algorithm. So to represent algorithm, there are two major ways. Ek hai pseudocode and second is flowchart. Pseudocode is like in simple English, you will specify step by step using some keywords. Simple English language, you will specify English like language. Yeah? Very simple. No worry about English grammar and so on. To express what is that you're going to do. And flowchart is like for every step, there is a symbol, there is a picture. Using those diagrams, we'll represent what we plan to do. And this is where we're going to spend most of our time in this particular course, come with pseudocodes and flowcharts. So all the exercises that we'll have will be with the pseudocodes and flowcharts after you've done all the thinking. So pseudocode and flowcharts are two ways to represent algorithm. Pseudocode is like representation of program logic in simple English like language, and flowchart is using some pictures and diagrams you will represent your algorithm. As it represented, a computer program can be written using it. एक बार आपके पेपर पे algorithm आ जाए, it could be pseudocode or it could be flowchart. A lot of times people feel algorithm is pseudocode. Algorithm can be represented as a pseudocode in English or can be represented as a flowchart by using some notations. And we will master both these techniques of representing algorithm. एक बार आपके पास ये algorithm आ जाए, then you can very well write a program based on that particular algorithm. So algorithm representation, that is pseudocode. Language that is typically used for writing algorithms, similar to programming language, but not as rigid. Itne rules nahi hai, semicolon chahiye, comma chahiye, double quote chahiye. Nahi, it's quite simple. In simple English, you will specify what is to be done. Method used to express most suitable for given situation that is used. At times plain English, at others programming language like syntax. So it will have somewhat syntax like programming language, but it is more simple English like. A person from non-computing background, your client will also understand. That's why you'll write. I'll say, read the first number, read the second number, multiply the first number, the second number. So these are steps that we are writing. A non-computer guy will also understand what that algorithm means. So it's almost English, but we use constructs which are in programming languages so that it becomes easy for the developer to translate this pseudocode into a program. And in flowchart, it's a graphical representation, okay, of the algorithm. in which graphic objects are used to indicate the steps. Input के लिए अलग symbol, output के लिए अलग symbol, process के लिए अलग symbol, decision making के लिए अलग symbol. So we'll use various symbols. Individual steps are represented by boxes, and there are a number of other shapes. There are arrows which will show you the flow. कौन सा instruction किसके बाद कौन सा instruction execute करोगे? And these are various symbols that we use: start, stop, process, input, output, decision, flow lines, connectors, on-page connectors, off-page connectors, and we'll explore all of them. Okay, so those are the various symbols that are used. So that's the stage what we are going to stop today. I hope you understood the significance of what we are discussing. Now what remains is only the next 3 stages. And once we complete these next 3 stages, then we'll start with exercises. So with that,
Sir,
note, I plan-
algorithm step 3 था ना?
algorithm was step 3 or step 4?
3
था।
I think.
3. पहला क्या था? Define the problem. Second क्या था?
Identify the requirement.
Identify the requirement. Third was algorithm. Third was algorithm. Okay. एक बार देखो क्या करना है पता चला है. उसके स्पेसिफिकेशन सारे पता है. Now you can think about ideas as to how the problem should be solved. But again I repeat, don't be in a hurry to implement that idea. It's still not the right time कि idea आ गया है तो मैं उसे implement करूंगा. There are some more steps that we should go through. It should become a part and parcel of your thinking process. ऐसा ही सोचना चाहिए. अगर ये steps follow करोगे, I can promise you, you will come with the correct solution the very first time. Okay, but for that you have to go through all the steps. Don't skip any steps in between. You will definitely gain confidence of developing the problem. We meet tomorrow again and we wind up with the last part of our discussion when we meet. Okay, so before we stop, like always, we'll take a quick feedback about what was your learning for today. Viraj?
Sir, identifying the problems was a takeaway for me, where you identify the requirements of the client, but it's not the first stage. It is the second one, as you said. Important thing is first one, the way you define the problem.
Way of defining, because defining understands the core issue, exact matter क्या है, exact major concern क्या है. एक बार major issue पता चल गया ना, then you can take care of smaller things here and there later.
So,
Okay,
sir,
Saira?
everyone was repeating that you said everyone was
Description.
repeating. Yeah, that was
Description.
second step, right?
No, that was the first step. Defining the
No,
problem.
no, sir. Division was the right answer for the first step,
Correct.
and requirements they were mentioning after that. So it was second step, right?
What you were specifying was what was there in the
Yeah, yeah.
requirement. So requirement नहीं चाहिए था. Requirement तो बाद में आएगा ना, कैसे रहेगा क्या नहीं. But क्यों करना है वो data collect, वो तो पहले पता चले. Aditya?
Yes, sir. Defining and understanding the problem is the giver for
Why do
me.
you feel? Why?
Sir, because most of the time we didn't get exactly what's the problem, and we somehow deviated from that problem, and so it is very necessary to understand and
What you're trying to say is
define
that it will give direction. एक बार वो
Yes, sir.
define
Yes,
सही हुआ
sir.
तो direction मिल जाएगा. Otherwise हम लोग कुछ और ही करते रहेंगे and what you
Deviate
expect
हो
is
जाएंगे.
something different. Deviation का मतलब क्या है? वो direction नहीं है. Direction गलत हो रहा है आपका.
Yes, sir.
अंकिता? Ankita?
Yes, sir.
What is your takeaway?
Sir, for me that the defining the problem in any case is the core to solve any problem, which makes us understand the further steps that we should take. So for understanding the problem, we have to correctly explain it to the whoever client is there, and then
we are not going to explain to the client. Actually,
Okay.
client से आपको समझ लेना है. But अगर आपने वो problem identify किया है, only then you can ask the right questions to the client. Requirement जो gather करनी है, that requirement you can gather only when you identified what the problem is. Otherwise,
sir.
what questions to be asked, that also will be struggling. क्या जानकारी
Yes, sir.
client से collect करनी है?
yes,
Ashish?
sir.
Sir, steps required to solve problems and characteristics of algorithm.
क्या आपको सही लगा, मीन्स क्या लगा कि यार ये हाँ दिस इज व्हाट वी शुड इंडल्ज इनटू?
सर जो कैरेक्टरिस्टिक ऑफ एल्गोरिथम वो उसमें बहुत सारे पॉइंट्स है, जैसे एक है कि नथिंग ईच इंस्ट्रक्शन शुड एंड एट अ फाइनाइट टाइम
Correct.
and
And the finite time
each
may not be very fast or very slow. There is nothing that the finite is finite, fixed. It can be less or it can be more, but there has to be some limit to it.
yes sir.
Bhagyashree?
Firstly, so define the problem, then understand the problem specification, and so how to solve problems.
Look, I'm discussing these thing issues with you, but you should really ask yourself कि सच्ची में आपको वो उसका importance पता चल रहा है कि नहीं? अगर आपको लग रहा है कि अरे इसका नहीं है, इतना important नहीं है, ask me. I can take some additional examples if need be. Okay, I'm assuming that these examples are helping you to at least understand the significance of these points. Because अगर ये नहीं करोगे ना, then you struggle developing that application. और ये करोगे तो you'll have better understanding of your problem that you're about to solve. So it's not about memorizing this thing. It's about accepting or rather understanding the significance of these points that I'm trying to make. And any place you feel no, नहीं हो रहा है मुझे ऐसा ये इसका convincing नहीं लग रहा है, please ask. We need to discuss that because once you understand this, because this is going to be a lifelong journey for you, whatever system that you develop, whichever language you work on, you're going to have some way of handling those things. So you should be convinced enough to follow that thing. If you're not convinced, you're not going to use it. So somewhere if you have doubt, please ask, because these are not my techniques. These are very well researched things which has happened for last 60, 70 years. And this is an outcome of that. It's not even my ideas. We are just following those ideas which are well documented. Kaustubh?
Sir, the most important learning was defining a problem, sir. As you said, we directly jump to solutions.
Solution, algorithm, एकदम. And algorithm से भी आगे उड़ी मार jump कर लेते coding directly.
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
it has happened with me, sir. Yes, sir. That is the important learning.
Okay. So we have to take it easy, not jump ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Defining a problem, or after defining a problem, you'll get a clear understanding on what you have to do ahead.
Very correct. What you have to do ahead. Why, what is that the purpose of that particular system? Why are we developing that particular system? Rahul?
So the program planning, like logic can be checked before actually implementing the program.
Yeah, we are yet to see that, but it can be checked before you run the program. It can definitely be checked.
Because time is directly proportional to cost.
You
And
should not waste your time implementing.
steps followed in programming, that is define, identifying the
That-
requirements,
Okay,
algorithm.
Missing out is we can learn to think. So thinking is not something that cannot be learned. It's a skill that we can gain. How to solve problems. It is not something that we have inherited from your father or great grandfather. It is a skill that can be imparted or you can also gain at any stage. Just we have to get to that exercise. You can gain that particular confidence, gain that skill of solving a problem as well. So problem solving can be learned. It's not that we will not learn. The point is like most of the time we don't give time for this particular discussion. We are in more hurry to learn languages. चलो ये language खत्म करेंगे, वो language खत्म करेंगे. ये इसके बारे में सोचते ही नहीं हम लोग most of the time. Sairam?
Sir, steps of problem solving only.
Steps for solving problem. Okay, and we are yet to complete those steps. Huh? अभी तो वो सारे steps खत्म नहीं हुए. Tomorrow we'll probably complete with those steps. Shashwat?
Sir, before writing a code, we should first define the problem.
Correct.
And we also identify the problem, and then after identifying, we should understand the specifications, that its input, output, and constant, and then
Constraints, conditions.
constraints, and then we have to then write the algorithm.
Now listen, you may be reiterating what has to be done, huh? But make sure that you practice it also. Don't just think about it like these are steps, that these are the answer, that because these are not questions anybody is going to ask you in the exams. This is something that should be your thought process. आपको सोचना वैसे है. So make sure that you think in this particular way, see the result, and if you feel if it doesn't work, then don't come back to me. And if you get the results, then say thank you to me. But then at least try it once, try it few days, at least during this course, and you realize it will give you wonderful results. You'll be more confident if you follow, you have a systematic approach, computational thinking, you are bound to be successful. You'll definitely get confidence about writing programs. Okay. So with that note, we'll stop over here. We meet tomorrow once again, and we'll complete the initial discussion before we jump on to various problems, different types of problems. And with exercises, we'll solve the problem. And I'll teach you with new generation tools which are available now, how to test the algorithm. Previous batches, when I have done that, I did not have those tools. आज मेरे पास ऐसे tools है which I'll be sharing with you, through which we can test your algorithms very early stage. Test
Sir.
it in different ways. Yes, please.
सर वो पिलर जो देखे थे हमने, तो वो पहले अप्लाई हो गए या फिर बाद में आफ्टर द स्टेप्स ऑफ सॉल्विंग प्रॉब्लम?
That is not related to solving the problem. It will be a part of while you are designing, when you're thinking about a solution to the problem. Algorithm सोचते समय भी आपको इसके बारे में सोचना होगा. डेटा कलेक्ट करते समय एक देखो अंडरस्टैंड द रिक्वायरमेंट था, वहां आप कौन से डेटा कलेक्ट करोगे? ओनली व्हाट इज रिक्वायर्ड, एब्स्ट्रैक्शन. जब सॉल्यूशन डिजाइन करोगे, एल्गोरिथम डिजाइन करोगे, तब वहां पैटर्न आइडेंटिफाई करोगे ताकि वही काम दोबारा ना करे. So those things will be used in every stage at different places in the code, in the life cycle. Correct?
Okay, sir.
Okay. Those are 4 pillars of computational thinking that you'll use appropriately at any place wherever it is applicable in the entire life cycle of the project. So with that note, we'll stop here today. Thank you all for attending the session. See you tomorrow at same time. Take care. Love you all. Bye-bye.